Welcome friends. Today we will be discussing about frictional force. We will understand this concept through various examples which we see in our day-to-day lives. So in one such example is carom board. Some of you might have an experience of playing the carom board. You might have played it during the lockdown as well. So when a carom piece is flicked lightly, it slides over the carom board but stops at a certain distance, right? You might have experienced this. Now second example is a ball rolling over a flat ground. It also stops at a certain distance. When you kick a football, it will roll on the ground and it will stop after a certain distance. So why is this happening? The reason is when two surfaces rub against each other, the force of friction comes into play. There will be always a force of friction when two surfaces rub against each other. Now when carom piece is flicked lightly, so it will slide over a carom board. Now there will be a friction between the carom piece and the wooden board, right? So there will be a frictional force, and the frictional force always acts in the direction opposite or the against the direction of motion. It always acts against the direction of motion. So that's why the football and the carom piece stops after certain distance, right? Now another example is your bicycle. When a brake is applied while riding a bicycle, it stops after running a short distance. So how does the brake work? Between which parts is friction produced? So there will be a friction between a brake rubber and the metallic wheel of the wheel, sorry, metallic ring of the wheel. So there will be a friction between brake rubber and the metallic ring of the wheel, right? So there will be a frictional force which will act in the direction opposite to that of the motion. That's why after applying brake, after running a short distance, the bike will stop. Now another example is given here. Before looking into that, why do we sprinkle powder on the carom board? Because we want to minimize the friction between the carom piece and the carom board. So when the powder is sprinkled on the carom board, there will be less friction on between the carom piece and the carom board, and the carom piece will slide smoothly on the carom board. Now let's see next example. Take two pieces of smooth paper and two sandpaper and rub them against each other. So what do you experience in this case? The smooth surfaces can easily rubbed against each other because the force of friction between them is less, because these surfaces are smooth. Now in case of sandpaper, the surfaces are little bit rough. So while rough surfaces cannot be easily rubbed against each other because of the force of friction between them is much greater than the smooth paper, right? So it is possible for us to walk on the ground only because of the force of friction. If there is no friction, we would slip and fall. So when the ground surface is wet or oily, there is a chance that we might slip and fall while walking on the oily or the wet floor, right? So because of the force of friction, we can walk on the ground. It is possible for us to walk on the ground only because of the force of friction. If the surfaces are wet or oily, we are likely to slip while walking on those surfaces. So why is wooden plank laid down for pulling out a car which is stuck in a mud? Next example is which shows the force of friction is when the car is stuck in a mud, people use a wooden plank to pull out the car from the mud. Why they use wooden plank? The force of friction is generated between the wheel and the wooden plank laid down under the car, because the wooden plank will be little bit rough than the mud, because of the mud the surfaces might be slippery and the vehicle might not come out easily. That's why they use wooden plank, so that there will be some friction generated between the tire and the wooden plank, and the vehicle will come out easily. Hence, it can be pulled out from the mud. In short, the force of friction can either be decreased or increased as desired, right? So these are the examples from our day-to-day lives. It is easier to understand the force of friction. So this will be all about frictional force. In next lecture, we'll be learning about electrostatic force. So thank you for watching. Have a good day.